going on, sports family? It's your favorite two grown-ass men with two-game sports talk. We got your boy Mike and Jamal in the building. That's two grown-ass men. Hey, Mike, say what up to the sports family.
What's up, sports family? What's up, Jamal? We got a good one today, don't we?
Yes, sir. A lot to unpack, sports family. But this is a much-needed conversation, man. Mike, we're going to kick it off by just going right into it, man.
So we had, a lot of statements this week around the protest of the injustice and inequalities of police brutality sparked by the George Floyd murder, Breonna Taylor's incident still out there, Ahmaud Arbery's incident still out there, and so the NFL put out a statement this week. And ended up having to put out two statements this week. But we'll start with their original statement and kind of unpack from there. So the original statement is the NFL family is greatly saddened by the tragic events across our country. The protest reaction to these incidents reflect the pain, anger, and frustration that so many of us feel. Our deepest condolences go out to the family of Mr. George Floyd, and to those who have lost loved ones, including the families of Breonna Taylor, Mr. Ahmaud Arbery, the cousin of Tracy Walker of the Detroit Lions. As current events dramatically underscore, there remains much more to do in this country and this league. These tragedies inform the NFL's commitment to our ongoing efforts. There remains to be an urgent need for action. We recognize the power of our platform and the communities as part of the fabric of America's society. We embrace that responsibility and are committed to continuing the important work to address these systematic issues together with our players, clubs, and partners. So that was the original statement from the NFL. That statement kind of missed the mark. It was a broad brush, and we actually saw NFL stars band together and put a video together to kind of say, hey, no, that wasn't quite good enough. This is what we want to hear you say. What are your thoughts on that, Jamal?
Woo, man, about time. You know what, to answer that question, you guys, sports family, if you're watching YouTube, you can see me rocking this Colin Kaepernick jersey, not because it's popular, but I'm a Niner fan, of course. To unpack that question, man, we got to go back 4 years ago and say this. A lot of people did not stand with Colin Kaepernick. Let's be honest and let's be real. You know, there are a few teammates that stood alongside him. Eric Reid to be one of the most notable, who's no longer with the San Francisco 49ers. Now, he did not receive the backlash that Colin Kaepernick did. Colin Kaepernick was like the face of this whole movement. So how I feel about this is that in order to make undo wrong, you need to directly apologize to Colin Kaepernick in two forms. Man to man, face to face, apologize to him, and then make all concessions to bring him back in the league if he chooses to. I think you also, now we know this is not going to happen. Indirectly, they're admitting that, hey, look, there was collusion. You know, you can't apologize and say, hey, oh, now all of a sudden we hear you. From my point of view, what I really truly hear is this: 70% of the players that are represented in the NFL are 70% Black. So let's be real. If you remove those 70% players out of the NFL, are we talking NFL, professional football then? Are we talking about some high school football? No offense to any other players, but let's be honest. But that's my stance, how I feel about it. It always is amazing how when people see the backlash of their statement and how they really feel, then they come out with this half-ass apology. And then it makes you feel, from my point of view, and probably from many others, is that Is it really sincere? Do you really feel what all of America, damn near all of America, is talking about? Or are you just protecting your revenue shares? That's how I feel about that. Um, Mike, there was something that also too you pointed out, like in our conversations about how when it comes to the component of the Colin Kaepernick situation, do you believe they'll make concessions to try and bring him back in the league?
Uh, I do not. I do not. And kind of go back quickly on what you just touched on. I think the interesting thing about these statements or these statements that leagues are putting out, especially this initial statement from the NFL, what it says to me is you have scholars and great people around the room helping to craft the statement. Godell did not do the statement by himself. We all know that, right? What it tells me though is you did not have, I'm just going to say, and I could be totally wrong because I'm not in the room, but what it tells me is you did not have a minority in that room helping you craft this statement, because the statement was so high level, very bland and corporate. We're not really going to touch the real issue, but we can broad brush and say, yeah, we back this, right? Um, and I really commend the players from saying, nope, that's not going to be good enough. You need to specifically say these things. And if they had someone, a minority or someone that had been part of this movement, or even Kaepernick, if they had reached out to him and say, hey, we need to make a statement. We'd like to make this right. We'd like to involve you in the process. How should we go about saying this? Then I bet that statement would have looked totally different. And you wouldn't have to had come back and do another statement to appease other people, to appease your players. To if you would have come out with Cap and said, hey, here's our joint statement. We recognize that 4 years ago, what have you, we didn't address this the way we should have now. We're at a different time in this country, still battling the same issues. And going forward, this is what we want to do in partnership with Colin Kaepernick, whether he's a quarterback or not in this league. We want to have a partnership with him in advancing this initiative. That would have quelled all of it. But yet and still, I bet they had a scurry of executives or what have you in the NFL headquarters, and they had to band together and put something out. And this is what they came out with.
Yeah, yeah. I tell you what, I am very impressed, and I'm proud of this. And now it's a step in the right direction. There's a lot of work to be done.
Definitely.
Because when we think about it, like that's what makes this conversation so heavy and so much to unpack and talk about, is so much that needs to still be done. Because we're talking about also things such as the Rooney rules. And recently something came out about possibly incentivizing, owners to hire minorities in head coaching positions and GMs. And I'm like, what? You know, that angers me, because whatever happened to hiring the most qualified, the best candidate, removing anything out of the equation, such as color, such as gender. You know what? I'm sure there are some women out there, and we've seen it. I'm proud to rock this San Francisco 49 and Colin Kaepernick jersey, because the Niners, we got one of the best conditioning coaches. She is a beast. So when you get a chance, go look her up. I don't even want to tell you her name so you can go and do your own homework. But not to get off subject, but we're talking about, why isn't there still to this day a Black owner? There's so many things that again we have to unpack. But I honestly truly feel that this is an opportunity for this league, this National Football League. If you care so much and you say you're going to support the cause, to your point, Mike, minorities need to be at the table during these conversations. Their voices and what they have to say need to be heard, not because it's the right thing to do, because it is necessary. And in order to move forward from yesteryear and that way of thinking, if you're apologizing, what you did was wrong, you're also owning up to everything that you did leading up to now where we are was wrong too. Not everything, but things dealing with inequality and racism were absolutely wrong. And essentially what they're doing is shooting a bird at Donald Trump. Because remember, 4 years ago, Donald Trump said, get them sons of bitches out of here if they're taking a knee and maybe they don't belong in this country. Wow. For speaking up about injustice. So this goes out to Drew Brees and everybody who thinks that, okay, this is a great country. So what if a few African American people been murdered by the hands of police? And so if that was your son or your daughter, you know, would you feel that same way? So you have players that are speaking up about these same injustices and police brutality that again that they tried to change the narrative. Colin Kaepernick said from the very beginning, this is why I am taking a knee. So don't try to change the narrative to say this is about disrespecting the flag and the police and the military. When let's remind you, sports family, Colin Kaepernick got this idea of being more respectful or being respectful from a former military person, a Green Beret, I believe. He said, hey, look, how we show our respect for our fallen is that we take a knee. And because originally Colin Kaepernick was sitting down, he wasn't going to stand up. And, that Green Beret said, I find that offensive. Here's what you can do. This is what I would encourage you to do. But it's we're all passionate about this because it represents a really good start, but again there's so much to still be done, Mike.
Yeah. And so what does the NFL do now? I mean, at least they have time to get ahead of it and come up with a strategy and whatnot. But what does the NFL do now come, let's just call it September, October, when they start games again? And I mean, I think we all feel there's going to be some kneeling going on, right? Um, unless the NFL takes a cue from the NBA and really works with the players and figure out, hey, how do we advance this issue without having to do kneeling? And let's come to the table and really make a compromise, which they didn't do last time. So I fully expect there's going to be kneeling again. And what does the NFL do now? Because we are in an election year. It's going to be a polarizing topic again. If players start kneeling again, will they be called sons of bitches? Will they be, will the narrative get stolen again to be about the military? When all this stuff is still going on and you will have trials being worked on and being and going through and I don't know any of us truly believe we won't have another episode between now and that time, with an encounter with police or whatnot. So what does the NFL do when this happens again? Do you ignore it? Do you change policy? Do you not even do the national anthem? Because let's be real, while we hold the players to this high standard, you and I have been to multiple NFL games. And when the national anthem's going on, there are people that don't take off their hats. There are people that are drinking beer. There are people trying to buy beer. There are people running around trying to get to their seat. Everyone's not standing still being respectful to the flag. So do you remove that as part of it, or like what? It will be interesting to see what do we do now. How do we go forward from here now, from an NFL organization, and then two, how do the players respond, and what will the players do?
Yeah. I, you know what, me personally, and here's a position that I want to come from. It's what makes America, from my point of view, what makes America great is that for those of us who really truly believe in diversity, diversity makes up our population. And We always, we hear this in corporate America. Diversity and inclusion, that's what we need, is great. And it sounds like a dog and pony show. If you don't truly mean that, then you don't know the essence of why it's important. The reason why I want to bring that up is that here in America, we have different religion. We have different shades of all different nationalities. We saw one of the most polarizing visuals to all of Americans, probably in particular Black Americans, is that when we had a Black president, we never thought that day would come. But what it shows you, it does show you progress. I think we need to be okay with this at all sporting events, that we put out there, not a disclaimer, but they say that, hey, every Roger Goodell in their sports arena, whoever that, that GM is, whoever that commissioner is, they need to stand in solidarity and say, you know what, we respect everybody's uh, uh, freedom of speech. We respect everybody's thought behind what makes America great to them. If you choose to stand with the flag, we are with you. If you choose to take a knee, we are with you. If you choose to sit down, we are with you. I don't think that is an indicator of how American you are or not, because just think about it. Certain religions don't stand for the flag because that's not what they believe in. But they're here in America now. That doesn't mean that, hey, look, you need to persecute that person, or how about understand their backgrounds. But what I think the NFL needs to do sincerely is put that out. I really think the reason why people feel this way and they're taking a knee is not because of, hey, it's the cool thing to do, it's popular. Think about what we've been seeing. And I think a lot of Americans are now understanding, they're not tolerant of it, because if you said Black Lives Matter a month ago, you still would have got backlash, especially from years ago. But if you say Black Lives Matter now, power to the people. Everybody is with you. I think Americans have now seen the visual that it can happen to you. So unfortunately, we saw a 75-year-old man caught on camera that he was not hostile. He was not a threat to the police, but yet they shoved him down. The man ended up in critical and serious condition. He was bleeding out of back of his head, and an officer went to go to his aid, but the other officer pulled him away. That visual to America is what we have been talking about for decades. The police brutality, the injustice. Now all of America is seeing this. Now we don't, and this has never been a black and white issue. It's been a humanitarian issue. Like, if you can't come to the aid of a human being, something is wrong. How American is that? That's not American. That's not America. But I say all that to say this is that the NFL has to embrace the broader visual that, hey, not everybody looks like you, and not everybody believes in the same things that you believe in. That doesn't make them un-American. And I think the NFL needs to recognize that and support the players and the fans that support their business. So like you said earlier, Mike, we've gone to dozens of NFL games. You see me rocking an NFL hat, even though it says Niners on it. Guess what? The NFL makes money off this hat. They make money off this 49ers jersey. You see that NFL shield? They make money
Man, we
off
see it. We see that ugly
it. But yeah, man, that's what I really truly believe. That might not be the popular opinion. That's okay. So be it.
And I think the other thing that I keep peeling back is, and you kind of touched on it, is diversity is good for business, right? And diversity is good for brands. And what we're seeing is when the lack of diversity exists, must, all bases aren't covered. So I'll use Drew Brees' comment as a example. Drew Brees said the comment that he said, which it is what it is insensitive and whatever. But then his apology comes out and it doesn't quite hit the mark. So then he hits another statement, another apology. And I say that to say if Drew Brees had a publicist, or maybe two publicists, PR persons, one minority, one not, and I get it, this is expensive. Someone could have read it and said, I don't know if this is gonna actually do it. You know what I mean? Instead of someone reading like, oh yeah, let's put this out. That'll cover it. You know what I mean? Like, and same with the NFL. NFL puts out, gets a statement, and I feel like if somebody was in the room, whether it be Malcolm Jenkins, whether it be Kaepernick, whether it be Eric Reed, somebody's in the room can read that and say, ooh, I mean, I appreciate the effort, but in this climate right now, this isn't going to land well. You're going to have to address some of this stuff, because the elephant in the room is the original kneeling started in your league. The original movement started in your league. You blackballed the person and they still don't have a job. And now all of a sudden you're saying, oh yeah, we want to listen. We want to advance this movement. We want to, no, like you need to address, because you were kind of the start of this thing, right? So how do you address that? What are we going to do there? And invite Cap in, right? Because I get it. Some people may say now that it's kind of gotten a little further along that Cap is becoming a little bit more outspoken and pointing his finger in the NFL. But if you invite Cap in and make him part of this process, I think he would have done it. You know what I mean? I think he would have been a part of the movement. The NFL is in a situation now where Kaepernick is almost this generation's Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was considered one of the most unpatriotic people in the country because he didn't want to fight in a war, right? And I think he did jail time for that.
He did, yep.
And so you go from that to many years later, he is now the face of the country holding the Olympic torch, lighting an Olympic torch. You know what I'm saying? And how much of a hero he was viewed later in his life because of the stance he took earlier in his life. And what you're seeing now is Kaepernick took a stance early in his life and is now being looked at as kind of that figure. So, and he can grow to be that Muhammad Ali, bigger than life figure that everyone kind of gravitates to for equality and justice and things like that. So, you know, he wasn't the champ that Muhammad Ali was, but it doesn't matter because the movement that he's pushing has really galvanized. And so the NFL could align itself now with that and have a partnership, but it seems like they're tiptoeing on it, like they don't want to piss off 45 or you know what I'm saying, or what, but they're tiptoeing around it, and it's getting to a point where they're going to have to choose a side. They're not going to be allowed to play in the middle and you know, or say they back the players but donate large sums of money to 45's campaign, and or say they support the players but continue to blackball Kaepernick and not make him part of the healing and peace process and, you know, the change process. It all seems disingenuous. So they've got to make some really quick decisions, and I hope they have the right people in the room to help them navigate through
it. Yeah. 45. You about to lose your job. Dude, let me say this. It's what I find interesting is the fact that, remember, last off season, you know, news broke. I think it was off season, right before the season was starting. Colin Kaepernick got this invite from like two dozen NFL teams to try out. It was, you know, we you know, on the front end, a lot of sports personalities, had a lot to say, and and almost puppeteering Colin Kaepernick. He needs to do this. He needs to do this. He needs to do this. And it's amazing how many people, how many of us are saying Colin Kaepernick, he needs to do this. He needs to do. Stop being silent. Da 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 da. But a lot of us haven't been willing to take the position that he's taking. Colin Kaepernick, it just amazes me how, some people get their facts wrong about this. Is that, they were saying, oh, he was crying because he lost his starting job, and, so he's going to take a knee. And that's not how it went down. And, it's, it was a situation where it wasn't about him. It was about exactly what he said, that he experienced and witnessed something that a lot of Black men and women felt and experienced too. This was, remember, on the heels of a lot of police brutality, murders by the police. And Kaepernick he was fed up, like most of us were. I live in Dallas, Texas, and 4 years ago in July, it'll be 4 years ago, that you witnessed somebody that it was irrational, and he took his irrational state of mind and did some heinous acts. In no way, shape, or form do we condemn that type of behavior. We don't condone that at all, at all, on either side, whether it's the police or whether it's citizens, getting so fed up that you're committing murder. That's not the way to go at all. But what Colin Kaepernick was tired and fed up with is how people, regardless of how much you make, regardless of your status in America, America has a way to remind you that you still a, you know what. So I often land on this is that if the NFL is really sincere about it, just like you said, Colin Kaepernick needs an invitation to this dialogue, this conversation, because like you said, it started with him within this league. He's the one that chose to take a knee. Now, granted, the other players such as Eric Reed, and there's been many others that didn't take the same backlash. And these sports personalities who had this and that to say and whatever, Colin Kaepernick, how dare him? He's wrong. If he really want to get in the NFL, I think they owe him an apology too, because they were misguided and wrong. Because remember when the contract came out, you know what this is a traditional contract from the NFL and da da da. Then the truth came out as to why he shifted where the practices were going to be held. He was presenting, just like you said earlier, Mike, too. The media has this way of creating their own narrative to make you look some type of way, whether good or bad. And in this case, it made Colin Kaepernick look bad. But I think a lot of those people owe Colin Kaepernick an apology, because Colin's like, you can't buy me off. You can't pay me off. No amount of money is going to change how I feel about this, because we're dealing with the voices of the dead. They can't speak for themselves. But I respect him so much as a person to take that type of stance, because let's be real, Mike, me and you talked about this before too. Would we be willing to take that type of sacrifice or make that type of sacrifice? It's a lot left on.
I'm making starting quarterback money. I got a family. I'm living that good life. I got my brand. I'm doing good. Do I really rock that boat? For some people I don't know, just because they look like me. I mean, let's be real. There's a lot of people that would think that. There were a lot of people that didn't do anything 4 years ago because of that.
Yep.
And so, not to condemn the players that didn't do anything, but it took a lot. That was huge for what Cap did, and so I struggle with this one. But the funny thing is I am waiting daily to see what the NFL does, because the ball is really in their court, and you're kind of watching them kick it around their own boardroom's table a couple of times. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that didn't work. Why don't you try something? Oh, that didn't work. What do you think about that? Well, you put out state,
Mhm.
Um, and then at the same time, you've got conversations that keep coming out, whether it be interviews or old text messages or tweets from players that it's now coming out and they're having to address it. And the other thing is, this is the first time I think in a long time where people have associated being silent on racism with being racist. And so I think a lot of time people used to be able to hide behind, silence and not really state what their opinion or where they stand or what they believe in. And now that is not good enough. And so people are having to put out statements where they're not comfortable putting out statements, some coming across very genuine, and some coming across as, okay, you have no clue of what's going on.
Yeah,
And so it's been very interesting to see, but I personally love it because now um, you get to decide who and how you want to support.
agreed.
And there's been companies and businesses and players that whether I follow on social media or I support their products by buying their products. Um, there's one company, I don't even want to say their name now, but I buy a lot of their sport apparel gear to work out in, that has not put out a statement at all. And I've spent a lot of money with them every year. They won't see nothing from me going forward. Um, so I think it's going to be interesting to see how this all kind of comes out.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. I'm glad you touched on that too, because here's the beauty about all this happening is that in a good way, in a good sense, is that these companies and these brands are being outed. You know, silence is no longer acceptable because that's just that's what we're talking about. The tolerance of this situation. Racism can't be tolerated. There's a lot of brands that could have really kind of towed a line between, okay, we support you guys, and racism is wrong and injustice is wrong, and then keep it moving. But there are some brands that deep went deep into the whole dichotomy of racial tensions in America all the way back to hundreds of years ago. And when they broke it down, I was impressed. I left away from like reading those paragraphs. It's like, wow, I really, if it's a brand that I didn't support before, it left me kind of like, wow, I'm impressed, and I do want to support this, but
Hmm.
I'm going to take a moment to really kind of dissect it, take a moment to really digest it, because words are great, and that's what we're really talking about. The words are great. It's a start, but it's about the action behind those words. Because when I tell you, when we talked about, Florida State, the head coach, Mr. Norvell, was come out and, oh yeah, you know what? Yeah, we're speaking to our players individually, and that wasn't the case. And he got called out for it. So he might have all the best intentions of doing that, then say that. So your words can also, essentially your words can get you in trouble. But back to Colin Kaepernick too, with what I would like to see, and I think it is necessary. I don't think and me and you said this before. You don't start off an apology by saying, "I apologize if I offended you."
If
If clearly I offended you because
right.
you voiced it. You said that, hey, I'm offended by what you said. You don't start out your apology like that. And in my from my lenses is that I see that if the NFL does not bring Colin Kaepernick in and apologize, the NFL could make this go away real easily by and I would make I wouldn't necessarily make it this this big deal, like, it's just, hey, look what we did. But make it a big deal in the sense of that saying, hey, Colin Kaepernick, look him in the eye and bring him in. Bring all 32 teams, somebody to represent all 32 teams and say, hey, look, it starts with the NFL. We apologize, and we didn't do a good job of listening. What you said earlier, Mike, on an earlier episode is that most people, they listen to respond. They to have a response rather than listening to understand and to hear you and say, hey, you know what? I haven't experienced that, but that doesn't mean that that's not the case or that doesn't happen. They can next do this by really showing what that they're sincere about it, by putting their money into efforts that really support diversity, inclusion, and change. Because America right now has been put on notice that no longer where Black people sit here and say, I'm going to support these causes because, yeah, sure, this happened thousands of miles away, but it ain't never going to happen to me. Every American has been put on notice that, guess what? This police brutality thing can happen to you. It could happen to your family, and we want to stop it. No person, whether you're Black, white, or whatever, should be the victim of sleeping and getting murdered while you sleep. No person should be the victim of minding your own business, getting drug out of your car and getting tased. These are kids that we're talking about. No American should be pushed to the ground 75 years old or 7 years old and pepper sprayed and mace because they were the threat. Now what you're saying is that all these things that we've been talking about, not just Colin Kaepernick, but we as a society have been talking about, that has been going on, it now is not unnoticed. It is there for the world to see. And all I'm saying is that the NFL can make this go away real easy.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. If I was in that executive room and put my executive coat on and everything, I mean, I would tell Goodell first. Yes, there's gotta be some type of apology to Cap. Um, but honestly, I don't think you can let him play in the league anymore. And here's why: he's bigger than the league right now. He's bigger than the NFL right now. So if you put him in and try to have a fair competition and all that stuff, it's going to always go left. What you need Cap as now is an advisor to the league. He needs to be part of the leadership team of the league. And maybe you put him over a section of social advancements and social equalities, program for the league, and let him initiate that program. Let him be the face of that program, working for the NFL, working with the NFL. But to now say, okay, we made a mistake. We took 4 years of your football career away from you in the prime of your physical, peak physicalness, and we're gonna throw you back out there. And if it doesn't work out, okay, so what? No, I think you can't do that. I think yes, yeah, there needs to be an apology, but there needs to be some type of leadership role and program that he's leading with the NFL as a partnership. I think that's how you go forward. Because to your point, the dog and pony show of bringing him into a team, and is it a fair competition? What's the salary going to be like? And then if he doesn't play up to the level that we would hope, then people are going to say, well, what did you expect? He's been out of the league for 4 years, or other people are going to say, see, I told you so. He wasn't that good anyway. And they're going to forget that he was a quarterback that took his team to the Super Bowl. And as much as it pains me to say it, they probably actually should have won that game if they had turned off the lights in the Superdome. Yeah, I think Future must have been there and hit the light switch. But people forget that he set the league on fire and was really putting up some major stats. And so I personally think that's too risky of a move for him and the league to come back and play. But I think they would be it's bad for business if they don't bring him back in some capacity.
Yeah. I like where you went with it. My From my point of view, I would handle it a little differently. I would give him every opportunity. And here's why. I think a lot of the coaches, a lot of those teams didn't bring him in not because of necessarily their personal stance about the whole quote unquote disrespecting the flag. I think that was from a higher power. And now that higher power is like, we're wrong, we were wrong, we need to fix this, give him every opportunity, because I'm telling you, it's out of these 32 teams, probably 14 of them would be like, okay, we need give me the green light. I wanna bring him in.
I get that. You talk about trust. Of those 14 teams, what organization do you feel Cap can go in and trust that he's going to be put in the best situation to succeed?
Oh, I can name some right off the top of my head. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's hear them.
The Dolphins, starting off with the Dolphins. I know they drafted a quarterback in the first round, not just a quarterback, but Tua. And the reason why I say that, I think the infrastructure in Miami, that being led by Brian Flores, who is let's call this out.
Yep,
He recently put out a statement that drew the line in the sand and said, "Hey, look, if I considered you a friend, these are my expectations of you. This is what Brian Flores. I hope the Dolphins give him at least 6 years to get Miami right. Miami, watch out. Miami, they're doing some
Miami's making me a fan. To your point, Flores, I hope we're not butchering his name. Not only is he a great coach, I feel like his tweets and his comments that he has put out have been spot on. And when you compare his comments and his tweets versus an organization's comments and tweets, or a league's comments and tweets, it shows you the difference of who's actually going through something and experiencing something, and versus who is trying to blanket statement something.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like the NFL could have made their statements a little bit more personal if they had influence in their statement from someone like him or someone that had been through it. It really felt like lawyer speak.
Yeah.
And I get to your point. You mentioned their tweet almost tells you that there was collusion against Kaepernick. And so I get it. Maybe they had to say it the way they said it to avoid future litigation or anything. That's a part I'm not trying to think about. I'm thinking about the human aspect of it. So I agree. Miami is quietly, if Tampa don't get their shit together, Miami is quietly about to, they coming up, and I'm noticing what's going on there. Now, from a business standpoint, are you gonna pay Tua and Cap top dollar? No, but I agree they could use the quarterback competition.
Yep. You said something, Mike, too, that on a previous show or previous conversations that I agree with you. I think it sometimes goes unnoticed in how important it is to have a good backup. And we've seen a good backup can win you a Super Bowl. Shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Philly for sure.
So when I told you like 14 teams, I'm gonna name a few off the top of my head that Miami being one of them. The next one, the Panthers, the Carolina Panthers. Now, yes, they just signed Teddy Bridgewater, and when Drew Brees last year got hurt, we saw Teddy Bridgewater step in, and you were like, Drew, who? I mean, he did his thing. Now, granted, the Saints have a good team. They have a really good overall team. The next team that really honestly needs some help. And this wouldn't be a PR move, but this will be again a step in the right direction because they need it. And that's the Washington Redskins. You know what? I really feel now they got a good head coach who is no nonsense. And you're talking about a head coach, a minority head coach that can have some relatable causes on both ends, because their head coach father served. He is an advocate, supporter of the military, but he is also not turning a blind eye on the injustices that happen in America. So I
Yeah,
think,
but he's also a few blocks away from where 45 lives.
but
and,
hey,
and
but here's what we said earlier too. The NFL with this stance, they're shooting a bird to 45. So you know what? Hey, what we say? If you're gonna go in, go all the way in. Go all the way. I'm going in. So, but you know what? And here's a team where I honestly think that they it's been rumored before how if you implant Colin Kaepernick on this team, you might be talking about a playoff ready team instantly. And people might guess and this and that and the other. The Cleveland Browns. That the
no,
Cleveland Browns. I'm gonna tell you.
no.
I'll tell you why. Check this out. Baker Mayfield. Right now you kind of get a mixed bag. You really do. And what I see, and when I tell you, there's several other teams that I really feel like his skill set could really fit in there good. So Baker Mayfield is, it's kind of mixed bag. There's talk about, immaturity, lack of leadership, and also he does some good things. He has some good intangibles. But when you talk about Colin Kaepernick with a good running back, also with good
Two
wide
good receivers.
receivers,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a game changer. So when you think about what Colin Kaepernick did with the receivers that he had with the 49ers, you're talking about Michael Crabtree. You're talking also too Anquan Bolden at the time. One was kind of like almost at the apex of his career, and then one was kind of on a downward turn, but he was still elite. And Anquan Bolden, and look what they accomplished. But I really honestly believe that Colin Kaepernick, if given the right and a fair opportunity, he could thrive. I think what the NFL should do, they should lay their cards all out on the table for the world to see, so that when I say that, they can stop this instantly and be the most well received, recognized sports league in all of the world by just simply saying, hey, look, laying our cards out on the table and saying, when Colin Kaepernick's career is over, we want to offer him an advisor or chairperson's position on racial equality. Because what our goal is to not just address the problems of yesteryear and today, but make sure that they never happen again. And who best to do that than somebody who doesn't look like us? Because what we're talking about is also too not just the player side of things, but we're also talking about internally with head coaches, with GMs, and even owners. Guess how many African Americans that could buy a team right now? But it never happens. Never happens. I wonder why that is. But if we're talking about solving the problems of yesteryear, today, so that they don't happen again, that means that change has to happen. It's not going to be comfortable, but so what?
Yeah, no, I like those ideas. I am personally want to preserve, kind of preserve Cap's kind of legacy in a sense, his football legacy, right? Because to me, he is now bigger than the game of football. Um, but I think he can really leverage his career and a partnership with the NFL. And quite honestly, let's be real, Cap doesn't need the NFL. If you look at where his movement started and how far it has progressed up until this point, um, it's done tremendous work. Now, with the partnership with the NFL, could it go further because there's more financial backing and things? Absolutely, but he is in a position where he doesn't need the NFL, and so I think they would have to show that good faith in trying to forge a partnership with him and show that they're serious about it. And but even if they say, hey, we pledge every year we're going to give 20 million to the social justice initiative, and he's going to lead the how that 20 million gets spent each year, something, whatever that is, like, I would love to see something like that happen. But again, I am sitting here with popcorn every day, turning on to see what's coming on, because I mean, this news cycle has been pretty for us to be in a pandemic and you don't have live sports. Like literally, the news cycle around sports right now, in partnership kind of with what's going on in the world, it has been nonstop, and now I can't wait to see how it plays. Almost like a Jerry Springer show, because you want to. It's some drama coming out, and you want to see how it's going to play out. So it's gonna be interesting. I personally have never really been a huge fan of Goodell and how he handles things. Some people are, some people aren't. But I think this is gonna be a telltale moment for that league.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with you, man. I'm proud of where the progress could go. I really
Mm-hmm.
am. I feel like I'm most proud of those players for stepping up. A friend recently said that if they would have all band together, not just players alongside Colin Kaepernick for the 49ers, but collectively. Now, Kenny Stills and some others, they took a knee with Colin Kaepernick, because it's Mike. You said something too, and I failed to mention it, and so my apologies. But we we all have been peacefully protesting, peacefully protesting, and unfortunately, the agenda and the the presentation of peaceful protest has been, anarchy. That and it's been propaganda. The narrative has been hijacked, and you know, you asked this years ago, and I think it's a very relevant question. If not taking a knee, how do we protest? You have peaceful protests that have been occurring for quite some time now, but when it gets hijacked, and we've seen it now, there's no dancing around it. We just have to flat out say it and call it for what it is. The police have intervened, and instead of de-escalating the situation, what they've done is pour lighter fluid on the situation, and then say, see, it's them over there, see, it's them. And we're at a point now where, again, the visual has already been laid out to all Americans to see, that now the people that have been sworn to protect and serve the community have been doing just the opposite. So I think the stance that I would like to see the NFL take is that of listening to the players. So if the players, and not just black players, notice I said players, because I got to give a huge shout out to several non-African American players that have done a really good job about being boisterous and putting action behind their words.
Mm-hmm.
One of them who comes to mind, and he's been like, I know his parents are so proud of the young man that they've been raising and that they've raised, is Chris Long. Chris Long has been putting in.
Yeah.
He doesn't go out there and say, look at me, look at me, look what I've been doing. But that is the epitome of what we're talking about. Brothers and sisters in arms, not with guns, but in arms like this, with their hands united. Matty Ice, shout out to Matt Ryan. He's been putting his money where his mouth is.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to also, it's a dozen other guys, um, Aaron Rodgers has been put out a statement. He's been putting money out there. And no disrespect, I can't leave Drew Brees out, because I don't think Drew Brees is a bad person. I don't think he's a bad man. I think he got caught up in a moment, and I agree with something. Nobody should be afraid or have to contradict what they really feel. I like the fact that he said what he felt. Now, I disagree with it. Like many of us, we disagree with it. But I think Drew Brees has had the luxury and the privilege of being white in America. And the term that we coin is white privilege. And white privilege has really just kind of allowed you to put the blinders on and not see what's been happening to people that you consider friends, brothers and sisters. And it's been a visual of recent that I think has changed the minds and the hearts of a lot of people. So I wanted to give a huge shout out to all those players. All of us are making a difference, not by just talking about it, but really embracing the difference and the luxuries we have in America called diversity. And I love that about this situation. We just got to keep it going. We got to, I believe in supporting each other by listening and hearing each other out, listening with open hearts and open minds, and said, damn, I didn't know that. And we in America, as Black Americans, we always, not always, but we sometimes think that every white person grew up with a silver spoon in their mouth. And that's not the case at all. There's some that had it worse than we did. So, I'm real proud of what the players have done. And I'm looking forward. I'm like you, I got my TO face on, getting my popcorn ready. So, we'll go from there.
And the interesting thing too has been, I mean, I would say the NBA is probably what about the same ratio of African American athletes on the teams as the NFL. But the NBA has seemed to navigate this whole issue of kneeling and social injustice and supporting it way better than the NFL. Like you don't have any of these issues in the NBA. And don't get me wrong, the NBA, every game, they play the national anthem too, right? And so I think it speaks to the partnership that league has with its players. They saw that this was an issue and maybe met with them and said, you know what, we understand this is an issue. We would prefer you not to protest this way. If you do not protest this way, what would you like us to do to make sure we advance the cause that you're looking at? And it seems like that discussion has worked out and that partnership has worked out, where the NFL took a totally different approach to it. And while you thought you put the fire out 4 years ago, it's blazing now. And now you're looking like, where's the fire department?
Yep. Hey, you know what? Something that, and this is, I know oftentimes as fans, we look to, these stars and celebrities and pro athletes to, be our voices. And we got to take a moment to think about something, that our voice of the consumer is the most important. And here's why. And I always, they're my dumping ground. I always use Papa John's. I always use Papa John's.
Papa John's.
And you know what? I mean, Mike, you remember the coupon back in college? The coupon was Sports Family. We had a $4.77 coupon. That was 24 years ago. And I still remember that coupon to this day. I'm not gonna get into all of but we would always say we have this coupon for $4.77 to get one large, one topping pizza delivered to us. And of course, we left a tip, of course, but shout out to Papa John's. We love their pizza, but
probably still looking for that coupon.
So the point that I make in bringing them up is the power of the consumer that we have. So when a few years back, the founder of Papa John's, he felt it right to put some racial things out there, and the beauty about this whole situation was that what he said and what he did is wrong. It was insensitive. It was wrong by all means. Papa John's took actions. The chairman, they bought him out. And let's be real. He still gets, it's his company. He's no longer the face of it though. But what you saw was the immediate impact of change, that when we put action behind our words and say, you know what, we're not going to support your brand anymore. I tell you, for 2 years, I did not buy Papa John's at all. And if you guys can remember, not last year, the Super Bowl with the Niners and Kansas City, the year before that, the Super Bowl was in New Orleans. I saw all kind of like black people in Papa John's commercials. You saw Shaq. They advertised how it was important for them to broadcast their minority owners. And you know what? Yeah, you know we. Oh, they all you didn't. I don't think I saw not one white person in those commercials during the Super Bowl. They were beating it down your throat. The problem with that is that, you know, how it's presented. It was presented as damage control. Oh shucks. Oh my God, we got to make this situation right. Um, and like I said, I didn't support Papa John's for 2 years. I would get all kind of coupons, free pizzas, and I'm like, nope, you can't buy me out until we see change. I'm not going to support you. And that's the power that we have as consumers. We can choose to support or not support these brands and force the issue. And so, you know, eating pizza is a past. That's an American food. That, you know, that's an American cuisine that has no color. Black people eat pizza too, and it goes to show you how much, you know, that we were purchasing Papa John's pizza and how much we were supporting them. But then when those type of things come out, you know what? We force the issue. But you have to be willing to do so. So we can't just depend on our celebrities and our pro athletes to be the voice of us. We need to be the voice of ourselves by our actions. So whether you're going out there protesting, whether you're using your platform such as we are, or you're gonna do a combination of all three and say, you know what, I'm gonna support local owned businesses, I'm gonna support black businesses, and I'm not going to support those businesses that don't support us. And the thing that's great, those are steps in the right direction. But I think what we also have to do is start writing a narrative that supports ownership, that supports hiring practices, so that these things don't happen. You know what I'm saying? Like companies that we've been employed by, or companies that we've heard about that friends been employed by, that says, oh, we believe in diversity and inclusion, and but their hiring practices don't promote higher opportunities for African American men and women that are qualified. Not not hey, look, a dog and pony show, let me invoke our Rooney rules. But no, you know what, we should not have a ceiling on top of opportunities that we are qualified for. So those companies who don't practice that, we need to make sure that they're outed and make sure that they understand that, hey, look, it's not just about, okay, you supporting black businesses and black causes and things of that nature, but what are your hiring practices like internally? Not at just low level positions. You can have a ton of black people at low level positions, but you don't have minorities in higher positions, you know, VPs, CFOs, CEOs, so on and so forth. And I think that's where the NFL really also has some work to do. Not just the
Yeah.
NFL, but a lot of pro sports teams and other situations. And you've recently seen some celebrities come out and say, hey, look, I've been a part of these racial situations that have gone on for years, but now I feel confident and comfortable enough. I feel empowered enough to speak out about it.
Right. And not to pull this away from sports, but you touched on something about the hiring practices that I think is very important. And kind of being in corporate America and doing, you know, interviews of a lot of, you know, young people coming out of college. What I've noticed is how they're educated and what they're educating themselves about is a lot different. So in the hiring process and the interview process, a lot of questions that I've been getting is kind of what causes does your company support? What kind of volunteer opportunities are there for your country? I mean, for your company, um, and kind of, hey, what does diversity look like in your company? And not just for Black people, but for the LGBT community, all those different things. And so I think the younger generation is feeling a lot more empowered to come in and ask those questions as part of the interview process, because they're interviewing companies as they're being interviewed, where I feel like when I came out of school, I did not ask any of those questions, and not because I wasn't interested. I just, that I didn't make that part of being part of my decision process to take a job. I wanted the money, and yeah, I'm just being real. And I feel like a lot of these younger folks coming out now are a little bit more social aware, and they are asking companies these tough questions, and they are asking, I've been asked questions too, like, hey, you guys say diversity is important, but I don't necessarily see that in your organization. How is it going to be a different opportunity for me? Which is a valid question, right? And so I think to your point, um, making sure that the hiring practices, the culture of companies, culture of organizations, leagues, things like that, begins to change and focus on what do you stand for, and then let people make those decisions based on that.
Yeah, yeah. Man, sports family, man, we could go on about this. We really truly appreciate you tuning in and listening to us. You just got two grown ass men talking about some real shit in life. Um, we want to make sure that everybody understands that, hey, look, whether you agree with us or not, um, the point is that I think we can all understand and respect that change needs to happen. Change is good, and if you think about what Mike just said earlier, though, is it, in comparison to an interview when he came out of college, compared to an interview now, that questions that a candidate are asking, it just shows you the shift in what's important now. And we've seen companies go out of business because they weren't quick enough to adjust to the technology advancements and other things that change, and you become obsolete and no longer needed. But sports family, the thing that we really want to drive home is that we are truly Americans based on our diversity, based on our differences of opinion, based on us coming together, regardless of your complexion, your race, your creed, or whatever. We are truly all Americans attempting to achieve the same thing, and that's prosperity. Uh, raising our kids in a safe environment, and really prospering to become what we truly want to become. And regardless, if we can see the change and the shift in the world, and it's beautiful, it is really
Yeah,
beautiful. I want to make
yeah.
sure that we say that, the causes that we support is the one race cause, and that's the human race. So, Mike, I'm gonna turn it over to you. Anything you want to say?
The last thing I'll say is, change is not supposed to feel comfortable, right? And so I think I would challenge us all to get more comfortable being uncomfortable. Um, like Jamal said, we don't necessarily have to agree. We're not saying you have to see things the way we see things, and we may not ever see things the way you see things. But the fact that we can have a conversation about it, an adult conversation about it that doesn't turn into yelling and cursing and disrespecting each other, and really get some understanding on each other's perspective, our experiences that have shaped those perspectives, and just respecting that, you know what, just because I didn't go through something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Um, I think we can get a common ground and we can start to move forward. But I think we have to get away from this feeling of we want to be comfortable, because we're not supposed to be comfortable, and that's okay. Um, and so we don't expect that when we post these episodes that everyone's gonna love them and everybody's gonna agree with them, and that's fine. we welcome the open dialogue. We welcome many different ideas. What we don't welcome is bigotry. And so, if you have great ideas of things that you think would help bring us together as a people, help advance social equalities for everyone, we're all for it. You know, we don't think we have all the ideas. So, again, let's keep moving forward. Let's keep talking to each other. Let's keep loving one another.
Yes, sir. Sports family, thanks for tuning in. Peace. We out.
Peace.